Yeah, I saw initially with the IVAs that people were thinking about that as being maybe off hours type of fit, but now that's moving into the standard business hours. When you look at measurement around an IVA, there's a couple of things I look at. I mean, first of all, as you're assessing the environment, you're thinking about, how many normal calls that would go to an agent can be deflected. So that's the first thing. And then if they are deflected, how much of that can you contain within inside of the IVA so that there's actual resolution. So that's one form of measurement. Then another one, it would be kind of your standard contact center. So what is the CSAT score, the MPS? What does that survey look like? Was it a good engagement for the customer? And then the third one is, how much money are you saving? Right? What are you doing inside of your organization? Are you getting better gross margin? Is that going right to the bottom line? Are you increasing sales because of it? When you're sitting down looking at this, John, and what gets you kind of off your seat when it comes to measuring success, and where do you focus on what that measurement or metric is?
Yeah, so that's a great question because it's a multi-part answer. So let's think through kind of what our customers' top of mind is. If you think about most contact centers, right, they have tremendous turnover. They've got extreme costs when it comes to enabling a new agent, and then they have the inability to very quickly work across languages and also work across different modalities.
Mhm.
So an IVA solves all of those issues because you can scale very quickly because once you understand the workflow, you just add an IVA and you got instant scalability. So especially now this time of year, it's a holiday season. A lot of contact centers are trying to add resources. That's not easy to do, and it's been difficult for the last 2 to 3 years. You always see a lot of help wanted signs in retailers, much less contact centers. IVAs solve that issue. They typically come in about 20% of the cost of a live human being. They're instantly enabled. If you've done the upfront work and built out the professional services engagements and workflows, they're multilingual out of the box, and they support multiple modalities. So you think about as a retailer, for example, or any organization that's touching customers, we're able to address their needs in the proper modality at an affordable price point, scale on demand, and do it for 20% of the cost of bringing on a live agent, and not have to worry about the 300% turnover we typically see in a lot of contact centers.
Yeah, indeed. It's really an interesting dynamic, John, because at Arroyo 360, we work a lot with the C level inside of the businesses that we work with. So we get some really interesting viewpoints on the IVA. And if I was to maybe segment it, I would say that maybe the CEO and the CFO are super excited about the dynamics of it. I mean, the financial dynamics are incredible because you just called out all the parts of running a contact center. It's not easy, and probably the most pear-shaped, wonky-kneed portion of it is just managing people. It's tough,
Yeah.
and so we talk a lot about keeping customers and getting customers, and it's the same thing. Like getting people and keeping people is a similar challenge. So if I look at all of that and what you're talking about, that CEO and CFO immediately gravitate to, wow, this is going to save us money. But then when we get to the VP of customer success or support, they view this group of people in a completely different way. Like these are their people. And so this dynamic of how we're going to maybe downsize the organization, redirect people into other parts of the organization that may have need, all of that is fights against a command and control structure, which is pretty traditional. How do you negotiate that conversation, John? Because you seem like you've been up against this for quite some time.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I think there's a mythology that IVAs replace people,
Mm,
and the answer is they don't. Right? What IVAs do is they replace mundane jobs that are low value, high volume, and it turns out that those are the kinds of jobs that actually impact that investment that most contact centers have made in their people. because nobody wants to answer the same question day in and day out. It's what I describe with my customers as a soul sucking job. What we've actually seen is that when you implement IVAs and you do it appropriately, and we'll have to touch upon that in just a second, but when you deploy them appropriately, what you see is that customer interaction time with the live agent goes up. So it doesn't actually reduce the time, but they go up in terms of that interaction because they're now having more meaningful conversations. And when live agents are typically surveyed, what they want to do, and everybody wants to do, is a job where they make a difference. So being able to produce a relationship, high value, long term, engagement with an end customer is what live agents are looking for. So the hope is if you do it right, you're going to actually improve the people that these contact center managers are managing and make their jobs more fulfilling by removing all those mundane, soul-sucking tasks that an IBA is better handle.
Yeah, John, that's a super high EQ response, because there is kind of an assumption that the only job that we're doing right now is the entire job that needs to be doing. That's a weird statement, but if you were to take away those mundane tasks, could you actually get to the job that you haven't been able to get to, which might be
Right.
better account-based management, better outbound calls to just provide offers and to drive business inside the organization. There's so much that isn't being done because the capacity to do it is not there. And when you move the mundane tasks, which are sucking at that capacity, right, and you move that over into another area, you can actually maybe move the ball forward better for the organization. It's a very nuanced topic, and it requires some kind of big brain thinking. You really have to kind of get out of your own space and think about, like, what could we be doing different in the business. I think that's the disruptive nature of AI.
Yeah, and we're going to ask our customers to rethink how they do business,
Hmm.
because most of our customers are used to a paradigm that limited them at the beginning with just IVRs, and so they're trying to move the IVA experience into an IVR paradigm,
Hmm.
and that just doesn't work. You're going to run into the same challenges that you had before. You really need to think about the IVA as a virtual human being that has a set of capabilities that you can deploy to solve particular tasks. And then you look at your entire workforce, both virtual workforce and live agents, right, human workforce, and say, okay, this person who's a human being is better at relationships, better at having conversations, better at solving problems. The IBA is better at answering mundane questions like, what's my account balance?
Hmm.
Right? I want to reset my password. Right? Not, I want to open an account. How does this impact me? Can I add, so and so to my account? Those are questions for human beings. But just getting my account balance, that doesn't really add value for a human being to provide that level of interaction with a caller.
No, I mean, when you're having really a very complex problem that you're experiencing, it's very janky. And when you get to a human being, the response that you have, just the emotional response you have inside is, thank God I got to somebody who I can speak to, because it's so nuanced. And so you're right, like having that, what do they call it? The high value agent, and really kind of grooming that person for that event is really important.